right, good afternoon. Welcome to the Friday edition of the Northwest Pinball and Arcade Show seminars. My name is Chase Nunes. I'm back here working the audio booth, and Geek Gamer TV is providing all the streaming coverage of the weekend of the show. I'd like to thank you for coming out. I'd like to introduce up there at the stage right now, we have Dave Okert and David Shoemaker. They'll be taking it away saying, what? Ask anything about game repair. Gentlemen.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the 2019 Northwest Pinball and Arcade Show. We'd also like to welcome in Geek Gamer TV.
Woohoo!
Streaming live. And yes, I did lose a little bit of weight. Thank you for asking. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, but the camera puts on 10 pounds, so we couldn't tell.
Well, I didn't get to the point about you gained what I lost.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay.
So,
And then some.
I am Doc, and my partner in crime, as always, is David Shoemaker.
Hi.
And so over the last several years, we've done many different seminars for repair. Everything from headers and connectors to reproduction playfields, lamp sockets.
Coin mechs, power supplies, anatomy of a game.
Your balls are rusty. And so this year we didn't have any suggestions as to what you folks want to know about. And so I kind of took the executive initiative and I said, hey, David, we're only doing one seminar. And he said, oh, yeah, what's that? I said, yep. It's called Say Anything. You can ask us anything you want to know, arcade or game related. And
You didn't tell me that part, which kind of ruined my fun.
Well, hey, I had to leave something out, but we went with anything arcade or game related. And if we know the answer, we'll tell you.
And if we don't, we'll pretend we do.
We'll make something up, and you'll never know the difference anyway. So it'll sound good. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to open up the floor, unless David has any other fun, interesting things that he wants to throw out there first.
No, you guys, we're waiting for you. This is all about you guys.
This is exactly about, it's about y'all. What do you want to know? What can we in the future bring to you and show you how to repair? Between the two of us, we have close to 70 years worth of gaming experience, repair, restoration. We won't talk about.
It's additive.
Now I did say between the two of us, 70 years. I've only got 20 of that.
Oh boy, Yeah, beat you with your cane, boy.
So yes, when we first got together as partners, there wasn't any gray in my beard.
I had hair.
And he had hair. So without further ado, who wants to know
question?
what? And if you'd please jump up, we have a mic right back here, and that way everybody else can hear and see where you're at. And this gentleman is Owen from the Seattle Pinball Museum.
Mike? Can we mic him?
Hello? Hello? Is this thing on? Oh, there you go. McFly?
McFly.
Okay,
hey, there we go.
What multimeters should I buy, and what cool features does
How
it
much
have that
do
I'm
you
not aware
want
of?
to spend?
I want to spend enough that I don't ever have to buy another one.
Okay.
Within reason.
I own 7, and he puts me to shame.
That's because
Question, do you want it to be portable? Do you want it to be bench mount? Do you want it to be wired as in a power cord? Do you want it to be battery powered? Do you want it
Probably portable.
Portable, okay.
Yeah.
So, you're at Seattle Pinball Museum. As you're driving north on 520, you'll go right by Fry's, walk in, get the one that looks prettiest to you at that moment, figure out how to use it, and then figure out what you're missing.
Okay.
The ability to check diodes is a must, but it's also pretty much a given. Any other functionality, AC, DC power, resistance, it's not a multimeter if it doesn't have those. So you can spend from $5 at Harbor Freight for something that will work.
Hold up. There is only one wrong answer to this question. And that is the $2.99 Harbor Freight Special.
Spend the $5 to get that one at Harbor Freight. It will work. When I said 7, I'm not counting the box full of Harbor Freight ones that I throw at people when they show up at a repair party and don't have one. And I never want to see it again. They will do a job.
Right.
They are not going to give you tenth of a volt ripple checks, but usually you don't actually care. You want to know, is this connection good? Does it go beep? Is this diode good? Does it conduct one way but not the other? Is my 5 volts plus or minus 10%? It will tell you that with a $5 meter.
One of the features that you're definitely looking for is going to be the length of the leads. And
Are they replaceable?
Yes. And are they replaceable? The length of the leads and are they replaceable is a key factor, because you don't want one that has leads this long, because then you're fighting it.
Yes. You can get, and this is why I asked you, what's your budget? You can get one that has a backlight. You can have one that has an automatic backlight. Why do you care about a backlight? Because it's hard to see inside the bottom of a Defender when you're standing on your head. And you don't want to have to hold the flashlight to look at your meter. But having one with a backlight that's automatic is good, because then when you put it in there and you forgot to hit the button, you can still see it. But those features are going to add $100. Is it going to done much other than the backlight? Not really. It's the convenience features. I've seen one. It's really cool. The actual readout pops off, and you clip it up here, and it's wireless to the unit, and that's really kind of cool.
But
it's $200.
But it is $200, and they have a tendency to have the batteries leak in the head, which is the removable part that is magnetic that you can put up on whatever. And I've had to have that one repaired several times. No, I did not buy it at $200. Someone gave it to me because they had a problem with it. And I went, yeah, sure, I'll use that. And I went, oh, I see your problem now. As I'm replacing
I have
goo.
a oh my god category multimeter that's also an oscilloscope. And it's this big, and it's huge, and it's massive, and it's beautiful, and it cost an insane amount of money. I got it in trade for a Cloak and Dagger arcade machine.
But, Sears, we gave away at the bitter end is what we call it when we tear down the show and all the stuff gets backed up in the trucks. At the very bitter end, the last folks, we give them a little something. And in a few years, we had some Sears multimeters they were like $10. Mm-hmm. And those are wonderful little meters at $10. You don't have to go out to $75, $80, $100. The one that I use at Santa's workshop is actually an automotive meter. Well, the reason I use that automotive meter is because the digits are 1.5 inches. And even my blind ass can see that shit.
So one feature, continuity check is a real common thing with a multimeter. Make sure you can hear the tone, because they all sound a little different, and he can't hear half my meter's tone. You just can't hear that pitch anymore. So make sure you can hear it, and it's loud for, you're at the show and you want to check something. I can't hear it. Is it good? I don't know. So
and that's just like the other day when we were checking that bridge rectifier that was bad. It had the one bad leg. I was actually watching your meter because I couldn't hear it. Yeah. And I have that extreme problem when I go inside the venue right now with all of the games. If I'm getting a little close to you, that's because I'm reading your lips is what it is. And
he does also like you.
It's not a George Bush thing. It's no, I cannot hear you, and that's why I'm standing so close to you.
So, did that answer your question sufficiently?
Yes, sir.
Or we can keep rambling for longer.
I believe it.
And generally speaking, anything that says fluke on it is good to go.
It also costs more.
But you're gonna pay for anything that says fluke.
Yeah.
So
Now, no,
Most of the time,
I've
yes.
bought lots of meters. Yeah. So with meters, they don't tend to actually fail unless it's catastrophic. eBay is not a bad place. You can get a used meter that, if they show pictures of it working, as soon as you get it there, check the battery compartment, make sure it's not rotten in there, because it's real common for that. It's ironic that your multimeter will kill the batteries. And you go to check them and, right, my meter's dead. But getting them secondhand is not unreasonable. Next.
all right, outstanding.
Oh, we're done.
Woohoo!
Don't.
Bring it up, Chris Forrest. What you got, brother?
Do you have a mnemonic or some way of remembering which way micro switches are wired?
Depends on their use. There's no standard for that. It depends on the circuit and how it's going to be needed. So I check a schematic or one of the other switches.
The other thing is that generally speaking, most micro switches and even mini switches will have their three leads marked as normally open, normally closed, and common.
NO, NC, C.
Yeah.
They'll abbreviate most often.
And they're so small that not only can you not see them, neither can I.
Well, that's why you go to what now. Not all things at Harbor Freight are bad. They have a lighted magnifying glass that runs about $40.
I
This
have
thing-
5 of these.
Yes.
Every workbench I own has one of these attached to it. And I have one I can carry around if I need to go somewhere.
Those things are worth the $40. I actually saw something that I haven't had a chance to discuss with you yet. Our good friend Tim Leonard out in Langley found one on Amazon that actually has a floor stand with a rollie. And it's the exact same model. Instead of having a clamp, it's got a floor stand rollie, and you can roll that up to a pinball machine. It's awesome. And of course, I forgot to bring that up to you. I was going to tell you about that.
So most arcade-related uses are going to be using the normally open side. You run your common, and it's daisy chained to all the switches, and you run the controlled lead to the normally open. Some older machines in the coin switches will run all 3 legs, and they're looking for the close, open, close, and the timing of that to determine the size of the coin that went through and if it's valid or not. Pinball machines, they'll run the normally open, but they'll run the diode down to the normally closed. And so it really depends on your use case.
Optos.
Optos can, well,
Right.
those aren't switches.
Those can go either way.
So a lot of it is look at the other switches in the machine and try to follow along. When hunting micro switches, also I'll take a segue into something that's useful. If it's got a lever arm, how much that throws and the direction of throw depends on the model of the switch. They're not just arbitrarily replaceable. So when you go to replace a switch, you're going to want to make sure that you're getting those. If it being just a long lead that you're going to have to bend, it's a hassle, but you can do it with 2 pairs of needle nose pliers. If you can't swap the actual wire off, sometimes you can if you get the same model. But checking your throw angle and the direction of travel is important.
Learned that one the hard way.
For about $10.
Yeah, a lot of times some of the arms are no longer available, and that's where the switch numbers change. It's the same actual switch. It's just that the rod that's on it is okay. It could be 3 inches long, could be 4 inches long, could be
Talk
3
your mic.
with a bubble in it.
Mike.
Could be. I'm sorry. Could be 3 inches long with a bubble in it. Could be 4 inches long straight. Could be hooked. That's where your switch numbers actually differ. The switch itself, they're almost all the same.
Yeah. Is it
And-
got a lever arm that's hitting the bump, or is it an actual side rocker? There's way too many combinations of that.
So one of the things that we found is that before you go chucking that thing in the trash, save the lever. Because
Lever, the wire.
the wire, the lever, whatever it is, save that because you may come back to need that because that one just isn't made anymore.
It's sometimes you'll go up to a switch that has a wire form, and that wire form looks fine because the rest of it broke off clean. Wait, that whole thingy that you need isn't there.
Xenon.
I have an unrelated question, and I don't need to hug the mic. So if no one else has anything yet,
Go.
I will ask.
Come on.
Any advice for somebody who's looking to start working on playfields? Paint, graphics, etc.
Okay, do you see the wall over there? Go over to it, bang your head 5 times.
That's why I haven't started yet.
Reconsider. Do it a couple more times. Do your hand shake?
No.
Okay, good. Do you own a magnifier lens?
Yes.
Okay, good. Do you have a playfield you don't mind screwing up unrepairably?
No.
Get one. Find a scrap playfield, work on that thing. Top, bottom, strip part of it, mess it up, scratch it, practice where it doesn't matter.
Did your parents have you tested? That's a
For
good
lots
lead.
of things.
Yes. You are. Yeah. This is going to be a labor of love and a nightmare of unmitigated proportions. But if you're good at it, you're going to have people knocking on your door for help.
Yes. There are many
Including me.
different levels as far as repainting to try and fix problems, and it's really hard to diagnose. I mean, you can. Holly Jackson is very good at fixing playfields that have damaged paint, and then of course once she makes those repairs, then Bill Witzel comes and clear coats over it so it doesn't deteriorate again. Mark Davis, who is a senior collector that most of us know, he actually makes kind of like the old what do you call those decals, water-based decals, and we'll put the water transfer decal in there, and then he also runs a clear coat over the top of it so it doesn't come back out. There are a few places like Classic, what are they called? Classic Arcades or something that has taken scans of several of the pinball playfields and make insert replacements. Those insert replacements are great until you roll a ball over them for a while, and then they wear out just like the old ones.
Yeah,
so
you want to clear coat anything.
You have
Anything
to.
you do, you're going to want to clear coat.
Yes.
Which means you're going to want to. You have to strip the playfield all the way down to the bare wood. Clean it really well. Then you do your touch-ups. You do any sanding you might have to do. I wouldn't try doing it myself because I've got just enough color blindness. I can't match the colors with a damn.
That's where I come in. I can actually see colors.
Vid's
And-
advice is to just get the lady of your life to do the color.
Well, the other thing is that Micro Playfields, who is the company in Germany who did most of Jersey Jack's playfields, has come out with an overlay that is 3/32 seconds. It's a very thin plastic overlay that what you do to the playfield, for example, Black Knight, you would take that. All you're going to take off is anything that has any kind of lettering or numbering on your inserts. So if it says 500 or 1,000, you're just going to take that off, and you're going to smooth all that down. There's no need to glue this thing. It just slips right down, and it locks in place with all of your post holes and whatnot. And it's just like you have a brand new clear-coated plastic playfield.
Yeah,
And
I have one of those. It's great.
They do play a little different because
play a
it
little
is
faster.
plastic.
They
They
play a
play a
little
little faster. Some people don't like that. Some people don't care. If it looks good, well, it's personal preference.
It sure beats raised inserts.
But yeah, if you've got a 1979 that's got either raised or lowered inserts, Gorgar,
Yeah.
Black Knight, those, not a lot you can do there. Once you start raising the inserts start to bow. You're lucky if you can heat them up enough with an iron to get them to flatten out for you. And then if they stay in, David and I repaired a 1978 Bally Kiss, or 79,
Yeah.
78, 79 Bally Kiss, and David lifted the playfield, and I heard tink,
Ting,
tink, tink,
ting,
tink,
ting.
tink.
Yes.
And I looked at him. I said, "What was that?" And he's like, "I have no idea." And I went, "Oh, maybe it's this green arrow." And we
just
dropped the
fell
playfield
out.
down, and it had just fallen out.
A hole.
Oh, got some glue?
Super glue, not wood glue.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. What else you got?
Anything? Come on.
Yes, that's correct. I drink Pepsi. David is a Coke.
I have taste, and well, he's married to Patty.
On that same topic, I do have a playfield that I don't care about ruining, and
Okay.
I've started ruining it. So there's paint up here, and then there's wood down here.
Yeah.
When I paint, it comes up to here, and then you can still very much see the cliff. Is there a product or a way to level that?
So is that an insert that's dropped?
No, it's
or-
just playfield.
Okay, so
where
it is
totally
gotten
chips paint off.
it's gotten augured basically
Yeah.
by wear. You can use the same stuff you would use to fill a tabletop. You can use wood putty, or Bondo is a real common
Okay.
fill for arcade games. It's nice and hard. It's easy to sand and so on. So you can do that, but it's going to be hard to feather that and get it to bond well enough that you're going to actually get it to stay in place without trying to just slough out of that.
Yeah.
Minwax makes several different wood fillers, and the one that you do want to stay away from is Elmer's wood filler, because theirs is more gooey and pliable, kind of like Elmer's glue. But the Minwax wood filler is not bad. The better filler is going to be, as David suggested, the Bondo, or one of the other ones that seems to work fairly well is fiberglass Bondo, depending on what you're working with. It has to be mixed pretty much exactly right.
Now you could work around this in a scary way. You could drill a few pinholes so that it would get down into the body of the playfield and give it a bit of a bite. But it would make my sphincter clench pretty much to drill my playfield.
Cool. Yeah, and of course it's going to depend on the playfield too, because not all playfields are created equal.
So if you take a black hole, a haunted house, something like that, where you've got the window, any of the games with a window in the main body, those got a little rubber washer in there that you can crank down to adjust the float of that window, ideally to keep it dead on level with the playfield. Nobody ever did that. They just cranked them down to very tight, which dropped it below the level of the playfield and made it a nice ramp to launch the balls off of and wear the playfield out. Once that wear has happened, it's new playfield time. There's nothing you can do about
There's
that,
no Cliffy
really.
protector for that.
Yeah.
No, nothing to fix that.
Which is why I'm looking for a haunted house playfield. Somebody else has got to have a question. Get up there.
What you got, Dan Whitmarsh? Bring it.
Arcade question.
We can answer those too.
Sega 16, sound issues.
Okay.
Okay. So the Z80 is encoded, and you replace that, you get a burn chip. You
Yeah.
know.
You Phoenix the encoding. Yeah.
Right. So I got one board. I got no sound back, and one board where I just got background sound. is there something else in there that?
So what you've got is a basic sound system failure that you fixed the first step of in getting the CPU back to life. Those boards are pretty notorious for blowing the other components in that circuitry. Bad RAM, bad sound generator chips. There's a variety of things in there. It's getting into the logic probe and starting to look around. The 16, depending on if it's A, B, or C, there are schematics out there for the A and B, I think. And you can track that area pretty well from the schematics to try to figure out where the failure is. Especially like when you get one of the sound channels but not the other one.
Right.
They've got multiple chips generating sound in there. And so.
But it was only one sound ROM, and that's what. Was,
right. Well, it's only one sound ROM, but they're pumping it out to multiple generator chips to give multiple channels.
Okay.
So you get multiple sound effects happening at once. But the one ROM is just got all the samples information in it.
Do you guys know anybody that repairs? You do. Okay.
Been doing a lot of those lately.
I'll talk to you after.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm actually pretty good at that.
Yeah.
I could also do nutted.
Come on, we got time left, guys.
What you got?
Well, we'll. Oh. We'll try.
Which one of you is the Hobbit expert?
Ask the question.
Well,
we'll go from there.
They're twofold.
All right, bring it. What you got?
I've got a Vuk, the Rasputin, or whatever you call that dude in there.
The dragon?
Not the dragon.
Oh, okay.
The other
Okay.
Vuk on the other side.
No, okay.
I forgot what the heck you call it.
Yeah, yeah.
Radigan, that's it. My wife just said.
Yeah.
It'll come up and then come up and come up and come up. And I've done everything that I can think of to get that thing adjusted to where it just comes up and out of the hole into the habit trail.
Okay, so
What
it's not,
can I
it's-
do about
it-
that first?
Let me make sure I understand clearly. It's not coming in all the way into the habit trail?
No, it
It
keeps
takes
popping
3 or
up.
4 tries to get into the habit trail?
Bingo.
Okay. So
I've adjusted the voltage, adjusted the timing, this, that, and the other, whatever I can.
It's not your power.
You've got a mechanical.
The power is where. This is one of the most common mistakes that's made in any of the Jersey Jack games. Is that they said, "Oh, hey, you can adjust the voltage." And one of the biggest problems with Hobbit was they had a design flaw and that led into the shooter lane. And so right out of the box, some of their Hobbits would not kick a ball from the Vuk into the shooter lane. Well, it was a known design flaw, and they never fixed it. All it took to fix it was you put a crescent wrench on it and you tweak it a little bit. Well, people were cranking up the power on their solenoid because it won't kick into the shooter lane. I put more power in it. I got the power all the way up, and it takes 3 kicks to get it in there. This is a similar thing. You have a mechanical adjustment that is off.
Okay.
And it could be the adjustment to the habit trail. I think there's 2 or 3 nuts that adjust just that habit trail.
Are you talking about where it is on the hole?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
all
then
right.
and then it could also be that if it's played quite frequently, sometimes the 1/4-inch screws on the bottom of the Vuk will shift. Sometimes on that Vuk it has a slight adjustment there, and so if those loosen up a little bit, you can't see it because the holes are underneath that 1/4 head. You don't see it.
So I should tweak with that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or as much as I
Yeah,
can.
you've
Yes.
got a mechanical problem. So
And
first, turn your voltage back down to default.
It's default now.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I've gone through all that.
Yeah.
None of that's helped.
No, you've got a mechanical alignment issue.
Yes.
That's either below or above or possibly both. And you just need to get those lined up so it does the handover smoothly.
Okay, all right.
That's
That
all.
sounds really good. My second part
Mm-hmm.
of that question is up in the jet bumpers where it goes and ding 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 around in there and stuff. It doesn't do that. It just kind of goes up in there and falls back out.
So
Doesn't
your,
do a whole
your
lot of banging around.
bumpers aren't firing?
They are, and I've adjusted them all up to where you can just barely breathe on them, even if the ball's almost next to them. It just doesn't do anything. Is there anything I can do to make it stay up there longer somehow?
So they don't. You're saying that the jet bumpers don't pop?
Yeah, oh yeah, they do.
They
absolutely
pop,
do.
but they're not.
They're weak.
No, they're really strong. If the ball does happen to hit something, it'll bang against another one.
Uh-huh.
But it's very, very little, very
Short
infrequent.
ball time up there.
Yeah, you could say that. yeah.
Okay. So if you want to increase your ball time there in any adjustable coil setting like that, most people would think that you would turn your voltage up and make it stronger. No, you want to turn your voltage down and make it weaker, because if it's weaker hitting, it's going to hit the one on the left, the one on the right, the one down the middle, up, back, side, back.
So it would
Like
actually
that.
slow the ball down.
So
then?
what it's a lot.
Yes.
So you've
Yes,
got
you're gonna
it
slow
so
the
it's
ball
so
down.
fast to react. It's not getting as deep into there as it could to give it the umph.
I like that idea. Yeah.
So you turn it down a little bit, it gets a little bit deeper, and then it can give it more of an action.
Okay, all right.
And you'll see a lot more action in your threes, and the twos. Well, there's not much you can do with twos. Threes are where you're looking for that triangular action.
I
Back and
think
forth.
them two suggestions is going to help.
There
Thank
you go.
gentlemen. Appreciate
That's
it.
why we're here.
That's what we're here for. Thank you. Who's got something else? Outstanding. Bring it.
So my question's about rivets. For what I look on most of like my machine, they are like a bucked rivet is what it looks like to me.
I'm sorry. What?
A bucked rivet, like it doesn't have like it's not like a pop rivet like you would use.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know.
Gotcha.
So what tools do you use to take those out, replace those, specifically for like a target? Say your target's
so you're
busted.
talking,
Okay,
you're talking it could be a drop target. It could be a plastic.
Yeah, it's a plastic. It's on my
Okay, so a
machine.
plastic. So drop targets that usually have the rivet in the or any stand-up target that has a rivet in the middle holding it. Just replace the
Lollipops.
damn thing.
Yeah.
It's not worth your time
If
in
it's
your
a
life
lollipop,
just
yeah.
to spend the time to get the tools to do the job on a $10 target. Just don't.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
now if it's a
Now,
playfield plastic, that's
going
different.
to be more of a problem. Now with those,
They use the same rivets though.
They
yes,
do.
but you
Yeah.
wouldn't. It's just not worth the time
Sure.
for a $10 target.
Generally speaking, when we replace rivets, it takes two of us. It takes one of us to hold the two pieces together, one to hold the tool, and the other to hold the smacking hammer.
Okay.
Because you've got the piece, two pieces to be put together. That's one person, and then the tool and smacking hammer is the other
You've got
person.
an anvil, you've got the rivet, you've got the hammer, you've got a usually an awl. It's going to do. So it really is going to depend on the size of the rivets. There's nothing wrong with using a pop rivet in place of this, because it's going to do the job just fine, but it's not going to require basically a big compression unit, which is what they would have used at the factory.
Okay.
And they do that because they have that stuff.
Only difference between a pop rivet and the rivets that are there is, your pop rivets, you're dragging a nail through it to make it squish. With this, you're taking and mushrooming it with either an awl or an anvil
or
something.
a hydraulic press.
Hydraulic press.
Now getting it out, use a center punch. I've got a vise that I just close up all the way to give me a nice hard surface. Put it down, center punch it, and then I use my drill press as slow as I can go, and I pray a lot while I'm doing it, waiting for that head to just finally come off and not go any further.
Me, I'm a tool whore. I put my drill on it. I drill it out.
Usually you want to do it from the top because the bottom is usually a bit more malformed and it doesn't give you as easy way to get into alignment. If it's a plastic over like a metal bracket You could use a Dremel with a cutoff and just basically take the bottom off that rivet. It really depends on the situation. But then when I was putting it back together, I'd probably use a pop rivet.
Okay,
The only trick with the pop rivet is that you'll often end up with a little shard of the pull-through piece left in there. You can tend to knock those out with a nail set if you're worried about it.
So here's another cool trick. If you take a nail, generally speaking, what is it, 8-penny, I think it is, the smaller one. That's the 8, right? Not the 10.
Yeah.
The 8-penny nail, put that up in the bottom of the pop rivet, and put your nail in your vise, just so that you have just enough up that it should go completely through. Now you take a socket just slightly larger than the head of the rivet, and you tap it with a hammer. Drives it right back out, and it's still reusable. Does not generally damage the plastic.
What part's reusable? Sorry, I didn't follow that exactly.
The rivet.
Okay.
So if you...
It depends on if it's completely mushroomed in there, it's not going to happen.
Yeah,
if it's just been kind of spread a little bit so it's pressed in there, you're going to want to use a nail that's pretty close to the same size as the rivet.
It's about an 8, maybe a 6-penny.
Okay.
And
it's much the same way as getting out roll pins.
Yeah.
If you do it right, you can reuse roll pins all day long. If you haven't mangled them getting them out.
Right. So, but for your repairs, do you do the pressed rivets?
I use pop rivets.
You use pop rivets?
I just don't.
I do the pressed rivets,
Yeah.
and but like I say, it does take 2 people, and I go over to the leader of our show, Chris Walsh's place, and he usually holds the hammer, and I usually hold the awl, and in between us, we try not to drop the piece 3 times, and then we smack it together, and it works well.
Okay, thanks.
All right, we've had a few really good questions, and I see Tim Leonard's bringing it. So.
Yeah, and so the quality of questions is going down rapidly now.
I got this old beat up Black Knight.
We know. We've been trying to fix it for you for 2 years.
Yeah. I got this balls lock at the top, second ball locks, and once in a while it won't kick out. So I adjusted the tension of the switches. I'm thinking it's connectors at the board being dirty.
If you're in switch test, does it register that switch?
Didn't check that yet.
Well, that's kind of the first
That's what
step.
it's for, isn't it?
That's exactly what it's for.
Oh, okay.
If your switches,
But if it's fucking intermittent,
yeah,
Sorry.
I understand that.
That's what's so
So
frustrating.
there's 2 versions of the Black Knight upper playfield. There was the early version where they used long leaf switches.
yeah.
And then there was a refit and the continuation of the manufacturer where they went to micro switches on a wire armature.
Oh.
So which version do you have?
Long switch.
Okay, if it's a leaf switches, you know what leaf switches are like. They're always intermittent. Now you can't get the kit to upgrade because, that doesn't exist in 30 years. But there's a reason they switched them out because those were intermittent. So go in, clean your switches well, go into your switch test, make sure they're really working, make sure your tripping armatures are all in good shape. Look for mechanical hang-ups in there.
Now I didn't tell you this, but I would take an emery board, out of my wife's purse, and I'd file those contacts a little bit. It's kind of like the new leaf switches that you get. The new leaf switches you get have a protective coating on them that a lot of times when you go to replace your flipper buttons, you can press that all day long. It's making contact. You're watching it make contact.
But the shellac on there to keep it from oxidizing.
To keep it from oxidizing
Doesn't
and rusting, doesn't conduct. And it used to be in the old days you'd take a $1 bill or a $5 bill. Nobody ever had tens back then.
This is a really effective way of cleaning a switch, a leaf switch. Just put it in there, hold it with your fingers, run it a few times, and it cleans it.
Back in the days when business cards were real and not printed off your printer, you could use business cards as well to do the same thing. And white business cards were always preferred because you could always see the marks from the contacts. And, sometimes they'd be rust orange color, sometimes they'd be black, sometimes they'd be, gray.
And when they stop leaving
they-
trails, you get a clean switch.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Only another couple of months we'll get that Black Knight working, Tim.
Hey, it's come a long way. That Black Knight has come a long way from when it started. Trust me. It now has the Black Knight sounds, and it talks shit just like it's supposed to. One enemy cannot defeat the Black Knight.
All right. Who's next? We got 20 minutes left. Come on. Yeah. Don't be shy. I only bite if you ask, and, well, he's too slow to catch you.
So I'm, my background is like software development, a little bit of engineering, some tech, but very new to pinball.
Your question.
Okay. Maybe.
Interested, thinking about jumping in, maybe doing some tech work in pinball. I don't know, roving repair tech. What advice would you give me to what resources? Where do I learn pinball specific things?
There is no such thing as pinball specific unless
Okay.
you want to go back to EM machines.
I do not.
Okay. Those are very specific.
Yeah.
Pinball machines, once they went solid state, are just special case computers,
Okay.
like, your Defender or your Black Knight. It's still this kind of CPU. It just does some additional things. Understanding that some of those additional things are higher voltage. There's some weirdness in driver transistors and controls, but it's still the same when you get down to the digital electronics. So the troubleshooting mechanisms for the boards really carry over between both genres. When you get into, well, not many Defenders burned up their, flipper coils because they didn't have them, but they could burn up their coin counters because they are much the same thing.
Pinball repairing across the generations, it was of the internet age. Clay Harrell put out quite a guide on just about every different pinball machine there was, and then several other people jumped on the bandwagon on Clay Harrell's information. Well, and a few years back, 5-10 years back, Clay Harrell had a falling out with the community, and he decided that he wanted to charge for his information, and, well, the information wasn't all his. And so that information is still out there, and a lot of that information has been shared on PinWiki.
Okay.
And there are certain things that are notorious to certain years, makes, and models.
So pinball repair is much like automotive repair if you like Italian cars.
Okay.
Okay. The more you play them, the better they can work in certain circumstances. The more you play them, the worse they can work in other circumstances. You do get differences in manufacturer. Like, we were just working on a Gottlieb black hole. He walked up and went, not me. I like them. I like those particular types of games, so I've gotten familiar with how they work. A lot of the earlier 80s stuff, the manufacturers were so actively stealing each other's designs that it's basically the same board across 3 different manufacturers.
For example, the Stern solenoid driver board is exactly compatible with a Bally solenoid driver board from 78 to 85, I think it is. They're board changeable. Here, put it and use the Stern. They're better than the Bally.
And that wasn't on purpose. That was industrial espionage
That
in
was
action.
just an accident. Yeah.
It was like, oh, yeah, you got done with that design? Here, come work for us and do the same thing again.
They moved one chip.
Yeah, it really comes down to a lot of practice. They are very quirky. and getting familiar with how you can do various test procedures.
Test procedures, the old Bally's had a pretty decent diagnostics that was in a flicker flash code, and that basically told you where to start looking for your problem. The Williams of that generation, which was the Williams System 3 through System 7, no diagnostics whatsoever. Okay. And they were kind of a nightmare. Well, there was a guy, I believe he was in Italy, Leon Borges, created the Leon's chips, and the Leon's chips
heard of those.
will walk you through what
you
should
take out
have been there.
the code chip, you put his test chip in, you run through the board diagnostics, get it all working, passing his stuff, put the game chip back in, and it works if it was on the board that was the problem. Flippers, there's a dozen different designs of flippers across the years and the manufacturers. Getting familiar with the way that they're put together. Are they directly controlled to the switches? Are they run through the computer? Are they run through the computer through another driver board?
How do they normally open, normally
end
close?
of strokes? Are they powered end of stroke, or are they a logic end of stroke? There's like I said, it's collecting cars that are made by Italians.
When you started to get into the Williams System 9, the System 9 is actually what turned into the System 11. Williams System 11, they made 30 games, which 30 games was, I think, 10 years worth, something to that effect. The diagnostics, they're pretty decent in the System 11s. And as you got into the WPCs, the diagnostics continued to get a little bit better, and then they started to get a little hokey because of what they did with the driver board and the CPU. But it's still gotten easier and better as it's gone along.
When you're going to come up to any new machine, the first thing is, where's the manual? Because if you don't have it, you're just pulling out whatever hair you've got left. And if it's a stern, a modern stern, you're still pulling your hair out because their manuals are horrible.
As the diagnostics got better, including in the sterns where the diagnostics got better, the manuals got worse. And of course, the one manual that is I like to refer to as War and Peace, and it kind of irritates Butch Peel, but I don't care because it's not meant derogatory, is any Jersey Jack manual. It is about this thick, and it looks like an unabridged dictionary.
And it's still not that helpful because it's not organized in a manner that's really quick to reference.
There is too much information for the average user to make it useful. You have to sift through it, as we say in the old days. You have to sift through the bullshit to get to the,
find the corn.
Find the corn.
Like the black hole we were working on. Now Gottlieb's, the guy who owns the Gottlieb IP,
Steve Young, Pinball
does
Resource.
not release the manuals to general use. You have to buy them from him.
He has every one of them, and he will sell them to you.
And which is great. I got no problem with that. It makes it hard for me to fix something on the floor.
Right.
Because, there's no manual in the machine.
And if you do post it online, he will send you a C&D.
Sure.
And it'll get pulled down.
Yeah.
I have a file cabinet full of manuals, and I'm always looking for more. Even ones that I know are out there, I still like having a paper reference copy for me. I may look it up on my phone when I'm at somebody's house trying to figure it out. But I also will go pull the manual out of my file cabinet if I know I'm working on a particular game so I can bring it with me.
I'm a paper chaser as well. I can pull it up online and I can look at it on my iPad all day. I can look it up on my 27.5-inch computer, and I can still find it faster on paper. Right. And then again, I have a tendency to write on paper. I'm one of those people that writes in books. But I don't write the wrong answers in books.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Huh?
You guys brought up System 11, and I've just discovered that the previous owner of my System 11 machine has bypassed the headers on the power board and wired the GI directly to the transformer.
Outstanding. We actually did a seminar on that, I don't know, I think 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I think it was 2 years.
Maybe last year.
It was
Fix
funny.
it.
We designed
Fix it. Fix it.
Is the board likely bad, or is the previous owner or his tech just an idiot?
Option B.
So,
or it's an Italian re-import.
Not.
Container buy.
It's the one of my 5 games that isn't.
okay.
Okay, so then
So
then it's back to original
the-
option B.
Yeah, the header, it was a weak point in the design.
Well,
It melted down, and they didn't replace it. They just bypassed it as this is good enough for me to get it back out and making money.
The weak point in the design was that the general illumination circuit, since the inception of pinball up until the time that they started putting LEDs in pinball, have been overamped. In other words, they had too many bulbs in there, and after many years of use, they melt the headers and connectors. And most people are not smart enough to realize that you have to replace both sides.
You have to replace both sides and use trifuricon pins.
Yes.
That's the other problem, is if they'd used trifuricons at the factory, it wouldn't have been as big a deal. You'd have 3 times the contact area, they wouldn't heat, they wouldn't stretch, they wouldn't melt things, but those would have cost an extra penny.
So with an insulation displacement connector, you're taking a V and stuffing a wire into it to cut the sides of the wire. That's your connection. Well,
It works great for mass production, it's
Yeah.
fast, it's efficient, and it generally works for a while.
and they use a punch to do it with, so it's fast, really, really fast. Whereas trifurcon pins, you're actually crimping them onto the wire, and you're getting
Wraps
the
all the
full
way around
bite of the wire.
and- yeah. Much better. It takes more time.
And it takes 3 sides of a square pin. So you're mating on 3 sides as opposed to 2 sides on a really half-ass connection and an IDC, insulation displacement connector.
Yeah. So what you're going to want to do is replace that wire from the plug all the way to the head. It's about 6.5 feet. We figured out 5.5 feet.
It's 6.5 feet
So, yeah.
long.
Yellow, white, and
Well, you can go. Okay, we're talking System 11. Yeah, System 11 is going to be yellow, white, and white, yellow.
yeah.
Or no, I'm sorry, yellow and yellow, white, and then white and white, yellow. There's 2 different circuits.
2 circuits there. Also, there's room in that for an extra wire. Use it. Just go ahead and run it. They didn't because they saved the penny or 2 for the extra wire.
In the 11, it doesn't have the extra wire. It's the WPC that has the extra
right.
wire, and that was the one that we manipulated with I think it was green. Yeah.
So, and then when you redo the header on the board, make sure that everything's there as you expect it to be.
The other question is, in that System 11, does it have the interconnect board in below the System 11? And that interconnect board goes from the System 11 MPU to the interconnect, from the interconnect into the cabinet and or the head.
Don't know.
That board is approximately 4 inches wide and the same length as the MPU. If that's the case, that will have 2 5 amp fuses on the right hand, 4 5 amp fuses on the right hand side. You cannot test those fuses in circuit because they will read through the other fuses. And so they will always look like they're good as long as you have one good fuse.
That sounds familiar.
And there is 3 headers. There's the one header that is on the exact right, which is the colors that David was just discussing, the yellow, white, white, yellow, yellow, blah, blah, blah. And then you will have the 2 circuits that go into the insert. which is considered the back box, and then you'll have the 2 circuits that control left and right on the play field. They're 2 separate headers, and they both burn up in addition to the one on the right. So you would actually have 3 headers and 3 connectors to replace and or repair.
Okay. Yeah.
Welcome to pinball.
Idiot merged all of it.
And it's very common in a System 11 that has that middle board there that has failed. And so what they do is they will solder them directly to that input right there. Or if they don't solder them there, they'll solder the 2 of them to the insert header. They'll solder 2 of them to the playfield header. And they, instead of being on 2 separate circuits, left and right, now they've just made it one whole circuit, which is really bad. Those get really, really hot.
Thanks, guys.
No worries. We got 4 minutes, Scott. Bring it.
Well, this one's only 30 seconds. So you said it gets really hot. Okay, you get your first arcade machine. Pinball.
You got to step closer. I can't hear shit.
You get your first pinball and your second pinball, and they start to add up. At what point are you worried about plugging too many machines into one circuit? Or 30 amp?
Are all of them going to be actively played at the same time, or are they all in a track mode except for the one you're currently playing?
Okay.
Okay.
So here's where we're at, and we've run into this question quite frequently, and we actually got nailed on this when they wanted to charge our electrical for the show. Every pinball machine dating back to like 1960 is rated at 8 amps. Do they draw 8 amps of power? No. Could they possibly draw 8 amps of power? If you get every bell, whistle, light, flipper, solenoid, coil.
So they rated those as by looking at every output of every control at the same time. It's effectively impossible to do that. I ballpark it at 2 amps. Okay.
If you have every bell, whistle, and everything going, it might be 3-ish.
So you got all your friends over and you're playing your entire game room and you pop your 15 amp breaker, you've got too many. Okay. You have a breaker for a reason.
And I was worried about brownout too, though.
You're not.
So.
You're not.
No,
if you brown out your power, call an electrician. You've got serious issues. Okay.
The newer games that you're talking about the new Sterns, right? And
sure.
And or like a JJP.
Yeah.
You know, the newer games are running on switching power supplies that were meant for computers. And so should your power drop, it's just going to shut it down, and then it will theoretically boot right back up.
Recover, reboot.
And it'll keep doing that as long as you're making too much of a draw.
Yeah.
And so
I did my game room. I put in 5 outlets on a single 20 amp circuit, and I ran a 20 amp. That most residential's 15 amp.
Yes.
I was putting in a dedicated, so I ran at 20s. But I ran the right gauge wire for 20 amp all the way back to the breaker box.
12 or?
Yeah.
And most residential is pre-wired for 20, but they underamp it at 15 so it meets code at the time.
Yeah. But then you can't trust it. You know, you can look and see usually if is it 12 or is it
10,
14, whatever, however they've done it. If you're not popping breakers, you're fine.
Yeah.
What about battery backup?
I wouldn't.
A UPS?
I wouldn't. There's no
UPS holds no advantage when it comes to pinball. None whatsoever.
And it won't last long. But so a battery backup is to keep a bounce from hitting your sensitive electronics.
Yeah.
These really aren't that sensitive. And that great big Horkin cap in the bottom filtered that out anyhow. Okay. And that funny looking kind of lollipop orange piece that was soldered across the lugs is there for that exact reason. Battery backup is designed to allow your computer to shut down gracefully over the next 3 minutes because you don't want to save you don't want to lose your database.
I was more worried about being in
we
the
just
middle
went
of a
from
high
30
score.
to 0.
Yeah.
That's it.
So,
So have we answered that successfully for you,
Sure.
Scott?
Thank you, sir.
Outstanding. Well, as always, we've had fun, and thank you. We appreciate you actually asking us a couple of questions, because we thought we were going to stand here and stare at each other for an hour.
and that's really scary.
I see him enough during the week, But anyway, so
Now, if we didn't answer your question or you were just shy, you can find us out there on the floor, and we're still going to answer your questions. We might mock you for being shy, but then we would have done that anyhow. 'Cause
yeah, it
I'm
would
an
have happened either
asshole
way.
sometimes.
So thanks for coming out and asking us anything. But